Hello, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Raziel. This is a show where we can talk about sports, we can talk about business, and we can talk about everything in between. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, you know exactly what to do. Like and subscribe on YouTube, 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, 5-star review on Spotify. Today, my incredible guest, I have Nigel Eccles, CEO and founder of BetHog, as well as BetDex, former CEO and founder of FanDuel. Nigel, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Pleasure is all mine. How cool is it for me, right? I love this industry. I've been in it for so long. I've seen your name once or twice in a few newsletters. I'm sure you do too. What's that got to be like? Seeing your name in newsletters. Does that get kind of weird?
Yeah, it's good. I don't like. I guess if there maybe there was an initial buzz. Old school was like when you get appeared in the newspaper, like the physical newspaper, and you'd go and like rush out and buy
Mm-hmm.
it, and, like flip to the page and hope they got your name right. And that was cool. And like in my my mom would collect it and stuff.
That's
But
cute.
no, I see it in the newsletter. It's nice, but like it doesn't change my day.
Yeah, I was gonna say once I start seeing my name in newsletters, I think I'll like it. But then yeah, after a while, it's just like, all right, cool, good. I should be there. You know, I,
Yeah,
I earned
it's still
this, right? I love it, man. All
don't
right,
know
well
if
that's
I
you.
kind of feel like I earn it, but I'm like, "Oh, it's good," but it doesn't, I'd rather get another 10,000 users.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to. I like the way you look at it. Yeah, that's pomp and circumstance. But yeah, let's talk about real money. Hey, we're in gambling. You know what's cool about
That's right.
gambling? Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm again really excited to have you on the show. Excited to talk about the projects that you're working on currently.
Mhm.
The first question I usually have for people outside of hey, do you ever see yourself in a newsletter is why do you love sports so much?
Ooh, I actually my first love is actually not sports, which is kind of ironic for the companies I've built. My first love is actually gambling. I've loved betting in the betting industry, but I've loved betting since, like, I won the Grand National in, I think it was 1987, so I was, like, 13.
All
And I
right.
went on a horse called West Tip, and I had a pound on it, and it was 16-1. And I still remember all that to this day. And to me, that was incredible, right? It was just such an amazing experience. And then I went to university. I studied pure mathematics, but really, what I would really loved was probability. And ever since then, I don't think I've ever found a gambling game I didn't find interesting, right? That I wanted to sort of understand. And then I love the math, but I also love the psychology of it. And I've always just been fascinated. And I've worked in multiple industries, and this is the one I've always kept coming back to as kind of the most interesting and fun industries.
The people in this industry, I love it so much. I've been in it for 4 or 5 years now, and everyone I meet always everyone has a story, and I
Yeah,
always love hearing that story, especially over drinks. Those stories usually get a
yeah,
little inflated and a little flamboyant, but
yeah,
every story is much better that way. Don't you
yeah.
agree?
No, it's a good industry, and
Yeah.
I've actually left the industry twice, and both times come back, and both times being like, I want to go back, and because this industry is home to me.
They just keep reeling you back in, man. There's nothing wrong with that. So you bring up gambling, gambling versus sports betting, right? So like there is when you go to mathematics again, which is something that's always really interesting to me. When it comes to gambling, we're talking casino, right? Let's just use easy terms. That is mathematics, right? Like it is simple, not simple. It is
Mhm.
pure mathematics. When it
Yeah,
comes to sports betting, I think the fun thing about that brings so many people back to it is while it is mathematics, you're also dealing with humans. And you don't know what a
yes,
human's going to do if they're going to take off their
yeah,
helmet and get a 15-yard penalty, right? Someone's
yeah,
going to get a dumb foul and get a red card,
yeah.
right? So like how do you see the two of them from a mathematical standpoint? Do you look at it as just pure numbers or do you see sports betting as kind of it's it's almost like more fun
Mm.
mathematics at that point because there are variables you can't really take into account.
Yeah, well, like there's, both of them have a sort of a rich underpinning of sort of probability. Like even with sports, you might have a question like, look, say I'm really good at it and I've got an edge of, let's say, 5% over the house. Let's just run with that. And I've got a bankroll of $10,000. How much should I bet? Right. And there's a formula for that, which is the Kelly betting formula. But even then, most people wouldn't use that. It's actually too aggressive. So even in something like sports, where there's a lot of like soft factors, there's actually hard factors. And then so that's one part I think is fascinating. And the second thing I think is fascinating is this sort of psychology of it. Like, as a product, a sports betting product, like do people like longer shots with, where we give them like 100x payoffs, but maybe they're paying like a 30% margin, or do they like to bet on an evens where they're paying at like a 2 to 5% margin? And these are things obviously we're learning, and who likes what, and how do people play it? How do they think about it? Those are the things I think are really interesting. And it's something that we spend a lot of time when we are designing products, particularly in the casino world. Should there be games with like high variance? Should there be games where people lose, win big, or should they, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win? All of these factors are things that go into how we think about these games.
And I think that makes it much more interesting, right? Like, because all people are different, right? I want, give me the, 3-leg parlay plus 400, like
Yeah,
that. Because for some reason, my brain says, oh, you could probably hit that. But like, let's be
yeah,
honest, like that's not how it works, right?
yeah,
I don't dive too deep on the mathematics side, but you give me a minus 110 on each side. It's like,
yeah.
is it worth it for me to 20 to win $18 or whatever it is? Like,
Parlays are, I think, very interesting because you normally, if I give you a 10-1 shot, you'll look at it and you'll go, well, that feels very unlikely to happen, right? Like
mm-hmm,
that's sort of the interaction. But if I give you, let's just say, like, I don't know, like 1, 2, 3, three sort of even shots, or like maybe I have to give you 4 favorites, right?
mm-hmm,
Those 4 favorites, and they're independent, collectively are a 10-1 shot, but each one of them is like, well, that's likely to
yeah,
happen, and that's also likely to happen. And so those 4 together, it sort of feels a little bit intuitively like they're all likely to happen, and so they all should happen.
mm-hmm,
When in actual fact, this is a 10-1 shot again. So I think they're an interesting one, like psychologically, where people are like, these are all odds-on favorites. Like, I think some people sort of struggle with that when something's an odds-on favorite, that it happened. I think they think it happens more than
mm-hmm,
it does, right?
yeah,
We even saw that in an election recently, where Polymarket and the markets are getting kudos for getting the market right. They got the election right, and I'm like, okay, so whenever in 4 years' time, the underdog that has got 40% chance of winning wins, everyone's going to be, oh my God, the market's got it wrong.
mm-hmm,
And we're going to live in this world for the next 100 years where, like, if the favorite wins, the market's right. So I think people are very bad at understanding. Well, they're very bad outside gambling. They're better in gambling, but outside gambling, they're terrible. They think if somebody's a favorite and they don't win. Like, so for example, Hillary was a favorite in 2016. She didn't win. And everyone's like, oh my God, the market was totally wrong. It's like, no, favorite didn't win.
yeah, right. Minus 110 just means what? If applied is what, like
Yeah.
52 or whatever, but it's really just 50-50 shot. Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
flipping a coin at that point. Like you're going to tell me 4 of those, that means you're going to hit tails
Yeah.
4 times. Or as you said, like with this most recent election, like when you look at the numbers, if you were betting Donald Trump at minus 65 or
Yeah.
65% or 70%, whatever
Yeah.
Kalshi Polymarket had it at,
Yeah. Yeah.
like that's like, yes, you would have won, but that's the wrong bet in my opinion, right? You take Kamala at 30% where you could however
Right.
many dollars your money, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
remember the odds, off the top of my head, but it was just like when you look at it, it's like, well, it's kind of silly because then you saw it come all the way back, right? It
Yeah.
became like 52-48 at one point, like a couple days before
Right. Yeah.
election.
There
Well, what does
was.
that tell you? People realized the math was just
Yeah.
wrong at that point.
Yeah.
So
But I
it
think
does
for
make
me,
sense.
yeah, like for me, it's sort of what I find is fascinating is how people view probability, what they think are attractive bets, what they put real money on. Those are all really like, and then how you translate that into certain games.
And I guess, well, like, let's just, this is what we call a segue in the business with BetHog, with BetDex, with some of the things that you are doing. How are you guys taking that information and utilizing it and personalizing so people are just actually getting the games, playing the things, doing the things that
Yeah.
they want to do?
So with BetDex, so the initial sort of game formats that we look at are really all sort of crash games. So they're not just your like 5 real slots games. We have those from third parties, and they do very well. But where we want to innovate is more around the sort of crash games. And so, like in the classic one is sort of Rocket or Crash, where a rocket ship takes off, and at some point it'll go to zero, and you have to get out. It's a really interesting game, I think, for some couple of reasons. One is that it gives the player a real sense of agency. So that player is like, all I have to do is just get out before the rocket crashes, right? Like if I could do that, then this would be an infinite money printing machine. Now we all know, and then the user I think also knows that that's like unknowable, right? But it's still kind of like, whereas with a slot machine, I press a button, spin the reel, and something else determines whether I win or not. Whereas with Rocket, it feels a little like I decide, right? I decide when I get out, and I have more control. So we really like that format. There's lots of different variants. There's mines, there's dice. There's one that we've just launched, which On Roulette, it's mission uncrossable, and there's other variants elsewhere. So we really like those. We want to extend them in some ways. So one of the ways we want to extend them is we want to we think an interesting phenomenon the last 5 years has been streamers. So, basically before, most betting online was not that social, right? It was, people just did it on their own. It was a very private experience, which we thought was weird because in public, or it's sort of in real life, betting is a very social experience. Like, people don't go to Vegas on their own unless they're
Mhm.
very sad.
Well,
Like,
to each
the
his
thought
own.
of going to Vegas on your own just sounds like impossibly tragic. But everyone wants to go with their friends, right? Because they want it to be a party and they want to have a fun time. In the UK, I always joke that the race course is one of the few places you can talk to a stranger, without people thinking you're crazy, and so it's a very social experience. And we sort of think that streaming is one of a really good developments online where it's actually a social experience. The thing that we think weird about streaming is that they're playing the same games that you could have played 15 or 20 years ago, same slot games. We want to make that experience more social. And so one of the titles we've launched, which is called Hogger, allows a streamer to share the game they're playing with their fans, and then their fans can play along with them, same game. So they're kind of betting. So in Hogger, essentially what the streamer is doing is betting on whether they can get the hog across the road. At any point, they can decide to take the returns and get out. But what we've allowed to do is, if you're watching that streamer, is you can then bet on the streamer and how far they can get across. So it's a really cool way for them to kind of participate and engage with their fans, and just making online gaming, as social as it is in offline.
That sounds like so first hogger, I have to assume Frogger, just kind of
Yeah,
trying to put the
yeah, yeah.
image of my head of a hog running across the road. And so I guess like that is such a I do agree like that's such a social way of going about it because yeah, if you as watching, right, you can bet on the person betting on the game, right? It's almost like you could tailor fade to like the max rather than saying,
That's
"Oh,
right.
I'm going to follow you. Oh, I'm going to." No, not only that is I'm going to bet that you can't make it this far.
You
And
can make
you're
it.
kind of
Yeah.
rooting against them.
Well,
So
the
how have
variant
you
actually, at the moment, they can only bet with the streamer. As it gets more traction, one idea we've been thinking about is, what if you can bet against the streamer?
Mhm.
The
People
streamer's
are
sitting there
haters.
going, "You guys are all betting against me? Like,
Yep.
you
Yeah,
really
I mean,
want to
that's
fight?" Yeah,
if you ever go online, the people that get the most pub, right? Hey, like the barstool guys, like people, yeah, they win sometimes, but people love when they lose, right? It's like kind
yeah,
of that weird. I don't
yeah,
understand the psychology, the mentality of wanting someone to lose. It's not quite my style, but like it
yeah,
is so interesting to see what the internet does when there's a known celebrity or a figure that goes out and loses a bunch of money, and then
yeah,
everyone just gets to point and laugh at this person. Well,
yeah. Oh, no,
now
that
you
is
can put
it.
your money behind that person
Yeah,
losing. So not only are you laughing at them, you're also making money along the way,
that's right.
right? It's like the perfect mentality.
Yeah, yeah. So we just think that, casino, I would argue that sports betting has arguably seen more innovation in the last 10 years than casino has. I'd say stake has done a really good job of crash games with provably fair, but I would say that the third party, the B2B casino world, it doesn't feel like it's seen a ton of innovation. The games feel very samey. And so that's one of the big things we're pushing on, is say, like, we want to really innovate here. We look at the sort of 500 online casino products, and they all look very similar, right? Like the different platforms. And so we want something that is very distinctive, where people are playing games they can only play on BetHog. We have a team that is producing about one new game a month. And so that's what we're trying to build there.
Yeah, casino is a very interesting piece of this industry, right? We all sports betting gets everyone in. Pass was repealed, so we're all talking about sports betting. Everyone's talking about the game last night, and every Sunday sitting down making same game parlays. Very big innovation, as you've said, in the industry. But casino is actually where all the money comes from. Like it's just like a
Yeah.
hilarious, like everyone just kind of, oh yeah, casinos. Like 4 states bring in what, like a quarter
Yeah.
of the revenue as 38 states or whatever it does. Like let's
Yeah.
just start doing some simple math here, guys. Why do you think it's taken so long for casino companies to try and do innovation? Because hey, you could keep throwing out a new slots game every week. Like it's
Yeah.
still the same slots game at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think, our thesis is, these innovations, users are ready for these innovations and they want to do it. Like, we could be wrong. Like, we could do all this work and we could build these new things, and we could find out these casino companies that we're like sniffy about were actually like, they've already tested this and they're like, yeah, users don't want this. They just want slots. They just want like pretty little like candies coming down the screen, and we've already innovated. Like you guys, seem to think you know what you're doing, but you don't. So we're gonna find that out. I think that a little bit of as an industry, it's not broken. Why would they try and fix it? Like casino, as you say, it's incredibly profitable. The products in the market at the moment are very, very successful. So I think a lot of people are like, well, we don't really see it that way. We see it as very successful, and so we don't feel the need to totally change what we're putting out there.
Yeah, I mean, on the same accord as right. It's like the new draft. I'm sorry, the new blackjack game is just like, hey, now it's Christmas blackjack. Don't
Yeah,
you want to play this? It's like, oh, okay, I guess, sure, like
yeah,
whatever. And it's just so interesting to me that it's just yes, there's something to say about that, right? There's something
mm,
to say that this game that is simple, that
yeah.
people can play. Like there's something beautiful that everyone's just like, no, I just want to play blackjack. Just let me
People
keep
know.
playing
I think
blackjack.
I think one of the other things is a lot of casino games actually have a surprising learning curve. Like we think blackjack, craps, less roulette. Roulette's pretty obvious. You put the money on the table, it's in the wheel. But like those other games, in a way, it's interesting. Craps, or sorry, blackjack is one of the only skill games that you will play in a casino. Now it's not complete skill; you can't beat it, but without counting. But I don't know if there's room for another game like blackjack, a game that is skill and chance. We've sort of thought about it, like, what if there was a game where if you were good at it, your your expected value, or EV, would still be negative, but it'd be better than if you weren't good at it. And I'm like, I don't know if there's room for another game like that. That's like blackjack. Blackjack is
Mhm.
incredibly popular and online. I don't know if people are like willing to study and learn another game at the same way as they are with blackjack.
I probably agree to that point, and I think that's
Mm,
where kind of that middle ground of crash games comes in that you right,
right.
it's on me, like, blackjack's on me. Do I hit? Do I stand? Like,
Yeah.
"Hey, we know what the dealer's gonna do no matter what. If it's
Yeah.
under this, they do that. If it's over this, they do that." Like, that's it. It's simple from
Yeah.
that perspective. But I
Blackjack's
do
funny.
believe
I was playing on Saturday night, but it was like a fun table. So you like I turn up and they just give you tokens and then you bet, and then if you run out you get more. But that was like, and to me obviously it was kind of pointless. It was like after like a minute or so I chatted a few people and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But the person beside me was like, she had like a 16 and it was a 5 up and she's like, hit me. And I'm like, what? I'm
yeah, you
like,
gotta stay on
"What?"
that.
I'm like, "Wait a second, this isn't, like, real money, like, why would I care?" Like,
Yeah.
but it took every part of me not to say, "No, don't hit it."
That's funny. I mean, some people just it's such an interesting game too, right? I've talked to people where it's just like, "Well, my grandpa said you always hit on 16." It's
Oh,
like, "Well,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, your grandpa's wrong." Like that's
yeah,
not
yeah,
how
but
it works.
this is not
Like,
something you have an opinion on, like, it's
yeah.
just like
Yep. Again, going back to math, there's a lot of math involved. There's some like simple basic
yeah,
strategy you can learn to just kind of get an understanding, right? You're not, as you said, you're not going to beat it. That's not how it works. But yeah, I just think the casino is such an interesting piece of the industry that like once more, obviously being here in the States, once more states legalize, we're going to, snap our fingers and find a couple $1 billion in revenue, which is kind of
right,
cool because
yeah.
there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm kind of curious from where you guys sit with BetHog, with BetDex, and kind of in this crypto space. How do you, how can you take advantage of the space that you guys are in more than some of the, these big guys here in the United States, the Caesars, MGMs, DraftKings?
Well, like, it certainly gives us a lot more flexibility. Like, we would love to come on shore at some point, like, we don't operate in the US, we don't operate in the UK. We'd love to come on shore at some point, and become operate in the US. But one of the great advantages is that the regulation that we have means that we can develop and launch games very quickly, and we don't have to go and chat to some of the onshore operators. It can take them 6 months plus to get a new game out there. I don't know if there's a huge benefit to the player or the operator for that process. What we are really enjoying is that we can literally come up with a game idea, develop it in a couple of months, and then launch it, and then see if people like it. That's been a huge advantage that we can just come up with ideas, develop it, launch it, see if people like it. And if they do, great, and we'll continue developing. If not, we'll pause it and we'll get working on the next one.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of nice, right? Because the opportunity to innovate is quicker, right? Once you add regulation, there's obviously positives and negatives to regulation. I
Yeah,
think we all can agree on that.
yeah,
It just also slows everything down. I am not a fan of the government. don't care which side you sit on. I hate all of them. So, that just kind of makes it a little more frustrating from my standpoint. But I do agree, like, there is an opportunity. And one thing that, going back to kind of skill games and things like that, one of the most hilarious pieces of like kind of adjacent to this industry is right, like those Zynga games, like Candy
Mhm.
Crush and like all these games where you're paying a boatload of money just to kind of pay the game to get more lives. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
why can't we just turn that into a casino game? Like, why can't you
yeah,
just turn that into like, hey, play, and if you can't get this, you win if you can, you lose if you
yeah.
can't. Like from that
The game
standpoint, it's
game
close to
dynamics
skill.
yeah, those game dynamics of those games are often just very different. We've discovered we spend a lot of time looking at some of those games and sort of, is there crossovers of those? They're incredibly popular, but, a lot of those games are designed around like, they're designed around, like, progress, so you need to feel that you're progressing. They're also designed to be very simple, certainly at the start. They're really easy. You're always winning. You're always winning. And so in a way, it would be very hard to have a casino game like that. You can't have a game where you go in and you're always winning, right? And then, because it needs to be, random number generator. It needs to be like, the house needs to have an inbuilt margin. So we look at those a lot and we sort of see what are the sort of crossover inspirations, but we're also very cognizant that you can't just like take that game format because that works really well when it's free. Like when you're winning doesn't have any monetary value, you can win as many chips as they can possibly mint. But there is, I think, still a lot I think the industry can and should learn from social gaming because social gaming has been phenomenally successful, and it's weird there hasn't been more crossover.
But plus, like, the social gaming company doesn't lose money, they only make
Right.
money. Like, that's the hilarious part of it to me. It's like Candy Crush isn't like, "Great job, here's $10." They're just like, "Hey, do you wanna play some more? Give us $20." And
Would
everyone's
you
like,
like to
"Yeah,
buy some more pixels?
yeah, exactly. This is
Yeah,
great. Of course I would like to." And it's like, "Alright,
yeah,
cool,
yeah, yeah,
thanks. Appreciate it."
yeah,
On the sports betting side specifically, as you said, over the last 10 years, there's seen obviously a lot of innovation with, again, the repeal of PASPA, a lot of things going on here in the United States side of things. What are some other things that you guys are looking at sports betting? Because at some point, like, parlays are parlays, like, get better
yeah,
pricing. Same game
yeah.
parlays are same game parlays, get better
I've thought,
pricing. More markets. Okay, cool,
yeah,
that's great. I wanna bet on more markets. Like, what else is there? At some point, we're gonna
yeah.
hit a critical mass.
I think there's again a lot of it comes around the social side at the moment. Like I think the lead operators in this market have done a great job building great products. Like they're number one and two because they are
Mhm.
obviously I mean FanDuel and DraftKings just for a number of factors. One is they just have the best products in the market. They are really good. But the one area I think they all fall down is just in how sort of social they are. It's kind of like a banking app, right? Like, I go to my Chase banking app and I check that something is cleared or I go and make a payment. And it's, you design it so you can get in and out as quickly as possible. But betting is an entertainment product, right? An entertainment experience. No other entertainment do they ever think, let's make the transaction as fast as possible, right? They're like, let's make it entertaining, right? No game works like that. And so we think that there's a lot more we can do thinking it from an entertainment paradigm rather than thinking of it as a transaction. Like, are those touch points fun? Like, are there ways that we can make the whole experience better and more entertaining? That's what we want to do with sports betting, and that's kind of in our sort of longer term roadmap.
Yeah, and I think that will be, again, there's one and two for a reason. I think we all can kind of agree on that. I've again worked in this industry for a while and very much agree with you. They're just the two best apps. They're just the ones I
Yeah,
always go back to because they're just the
right.
best ones.
Yeah,
Some of DraftKings is starting to fall a little bit, right? Like I don't know. It always talks about, hey, this is the best place to score, bet touchdowns, and I go look, it's like actually, you're like fourth best odds for this person to score a touchdown. Like this is bullshit. But
really.
marketing, baby, you gotta love it. If someone tells you something, it's true, right? So it's always
I
funny,
wouldn't have
kind of how.
thought they're necessarily the best. I've never thought of them as the best pricing, and I don't. I'd be surprised if they claimed. I didn't think they claimed they were as
Well,
such.
it's, again, it's semantics. It's the best place
Yeah,
to bet touchdowns. That doesn't mean it's the best
yeah, yeah.
market. That's not the best pricing. It's just, a
It's the
vague
best
term.
for them. It's the best for them.
There you go. Look at that. See, we figured out marketing. Look at us.
Yeah,
Nigel,
yeah.
this is awesome, man. I do appreciate it. I love the conversation and understanding again a little bit about what you guys are doing and kind of how your brain works. Because I think more people just pushing and doing cool things in this industry. Like I love this industry. I've worked in it for a while. I plan on being here for a while. And just seeing cool people do cool things is always appreciated. So thank you, man. I do appreciate
No,
it.
no problem.
This has been great, dude. So again, one more time, CEO, co-founder of BetHog, so, crypto sportsbook and casino, BetDex crypto exchange. We didn't even really get too much into the exchange side of things, but I think that is really, really cool. Anyone that understands, here in the U.S., we got a couple of them, but overseas, obviously, a little bit more. But yeah, man, this is great. Time's the only thing we don't get more of, so I appreciate your time. Other than that, hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Good. Thank you.